The Prime Minister is travelling to both Helsinki in Finland, but also Sweden today. Now, what is important about those two countries? Well, those two countries are very seriously considering joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, NATO. Who better to discuss this visit now than Fabrice Pothier, from former NATO policy planner, who can join us on the briefing now. Welcome to the programme. What is the message that Boris Johnson will be taking to these two countries today, in your view?
I think, in my view, you will have a very simple message that is basically, we have your back whilst you are entering the process of becoming a NATO member. And there's going to be an interim period between when you declare your intention and when you become a full-fledged member. And the UK, alongside the US, will provide firm security guarantees. So there is no gap and no doubt and no temptation for Vladimir Putin to do something during this interim period. So I think that's a very simple and important message.
And I suppose when we're talking about NATO, many people sitting at home watching or listening to this discussion might feel a little bit surprised that Sweden, for example, wasn't in NATO to start with. Of course, Norway has been in NATO for many years. Why is it that particularly Sweden, but also Finland, haven't been in NATO up until this point?
Well, both countries, for different historic reasons, have maintained a kind of either some neutrality, like Finland, and some tradition of non-alignment for Sweden. But neutrality doesn't mean lack of defensive capabilities and lack of sovereignty, like in the case of Finland, where they have actually showed their willingness to fight. At the time it was the Soviet forces, and they have pretty substantial defense forces. So it's to say they have had this tradition, and I think it was sustainable up to a point, but it was clear after the first Russian war of aggression against Ukraine in 2014, 2015, that some kind of doubt started to creep in those two capitals as to whether this was really sustainable on the long term. And I think the war of the 24th of February kind of tipped the balance towards them joining the alliance, because now you cannot afford to have some doubt as to whether your EU partners or your NATO partners will be supporting you in case of crisis.
The United Kingdom has always seen itself as a bit of an Atlantic bridge, something that can sort of span the mindset of both Europe and the Americans. And to some extent, NATO is a fantastic example of that, the UK being one of the founding members of the organisation. Does the UK and the Prime Minister's visit today symbolise a desire within the United Kingdom to take a much more leading role in this organisation going forward?
I think one has to be mindful with the image of this kind of transatlantic bridge, which can become also a bridge to nowhere, quite frankly, and has been in recent periods. However, you're right that over the last few years, mostly also because of Brexit, the UK has put much more emphasis on its role inside the alliance. And it has also made a point of showing, yes, we're no longer part of the European Union, but we're still a European power to be reckoned with. Therefore, the UK's pretty important role on dealing with the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine by supplying weapons and providing political support. And therefore also the UK's role in providing those bilateral security guarantees to Finland and Sweden. So yes, indeed, this is the UK's hour, or the UK's way to kind of be this European power, even though it's no longer a part of the European Union, but to some limits. What the real limit is that nobody on the European continent is willing, I would say intuitively, to follow the UK leadership or political leadership on those issues. So the UK can act, and is acting, and is doing pretty good thing, but it doesn't mean the rest of Europe is following.
Really interesting stuff there. Fabrice Pothier, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
Former NATO policy planner, of course. Thanks for joining us.